Hey, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if it's your first time. Today is not a gardening video. It's not a power of the mind video. It's not a make your own this or that video. It is a video that I want your advice and observations about. So my personality type, because I grew up in a part of the country and a time that it was more important to have character than to be a character. So in general, 99.9% of the time when I tell someone I'm going to do something, I follow through with it. But I understand when people cannot, but there's a basic protocol, there's basic behavior or a process that usually follows when you are not going to follow through with something that you have committed to. And what I'm seeing recently, well, actually probably the past 5 years, but it seems to be intensifying, is that people are completely disconnecting from reality. It's as though they can't separate anymore the online experience from the physical experience of life. And let me explain to you what I mean by this, because it's really disturbing, and the way it is affecting, but the way it is really going to affect society in the long term is going to be catastrophic. So, and this isn't just with friends either. Sometimes this is with professionals. I mean, these are people that are paid for a service. And I believe, usually when you're paid for a service, there's really basic professional behavior and professional protocol in regards to returning phone calls, letting you know if they can't make it that day. But where I live in North Central California, often they just won't show up and you'll just never hear from them again. Or when you're trying to find a company to do something for you, they don't even give you the common courtesy of a call back. It's kind of like shocking, and it puts you in this really weird, this really awkward position. So I'm just going to give you a couple examples of things. So I have chickens, and I get some extra eggs. They're super high quality. So there's a neighbor that we're pretty friendly with, meaning I've had he and his wife to our home for dinners and parties, and so they're not like total strangers. And several times now, he has committed to buying a couple dozen eggs and says he's coming to get them, and then he just never shows up. He doesn't call me to let me know he's not coming to get the eggs. He just disappears. And it's just weird. It's like he's okay with that. To me, my age, the part of the country I grew up in, the Midwest, I find it really disrespectful of time and energy. And it's just weird. It's weird behavior. Second thing, a neighbor says you offer to pay something for the other neighbor to do something. And they just basically say they're going to do it, and then they never do it. And then they have all these weird excuses when you ask them nicely, inquire, confront them, all these weird ass excuses. And yet again, just that complete lack of accountability, or just letting you know, I can't do it. That's okay too. But just leaving you in this weird limbo. And I have another example. What just happened? Something just happened. So I have a friend, they have goats. And she said, I think, we're going to get one more milking out of them. And she's just basically letting the milk rot in the refrigerator. And I can't stand waste, especially in this day and age. where food and resources, I believe, need to be respected and used in a respectful, but also, a responsible way. And so she said to me, the guy that helps me to take care of the goats, he's going to try to give them the milk this weekend, and I'll, call and let you know, and then bring you the milk, because I offered to take the milk, being that she's just letting it rot, and turn it into cheese, which I've never done before. But, for my channel, I really like trying new things. So just to let her know, I said, okay, because this is a time-sensitive thing, I'm going to go ahead and buy the rennet and the other supplies to make the cheese. So I am prepared for that. So the weekend came, and I heard nothing from her. And I still haven't heard anything from her. No, I'm sorry, there was no milk. Oh, can you come pick the milk up? That's another weird thing with the demographic I'm in. Often, like when you offer to give things to people, they actually don't even have the common decency to put the effort into respecting your schedule or your time. They will say, oh, well, they basically want you to deliver it to them also, because giving it to them isn't enough, but they want you to deliver it to them also. But they also will, do this thing where, well, we'll have time, and the kids in this, and well, you know what? It's not about you. Someone is giving you something. You're supposed to ask the person who's giving it to you when it's good for them, for you to come and receive the gift if they cannot bring it to you. These are basic manners. Basic manners. I mean, I know not everyone was brought up really well, but if you have a television set and you're 25 years or older, you should have a pretty good idea of what basic manners are just from watching television and just from watching movies. So there's no excuses except for that I think people are losing their shit. I really think that people are having trouble differentiating between the casualness of watching a video, leaving a comment, or sending a text, and actually having physical interactions with other human beings. Now, I'm just giving you a couple examples here. I could go on and on and on, but for me, it's disturbing because I don't know how to function anymore and be my genuine self. And what I mean by that is my genuine self is I'm an incredibly generous person. And I'm generous, and I'm also very reliable. And now that I am disproportionately surrounded with fuck-ups and people that just don't seem to have basic social skills, it makes me want to pull in even further and to isolate myself even further. Because, where I live, they throw around this term, how it is with people these days. They latch on to a term that they learn, and then they kind of use it in an abusive or manipulative way instead of understanding the responsibility behind it. And one of the big terms that they love to use here in Santa Cruz is community. Community. And I have to be honest with you. I've been here for 10 years, and the majority of the time when people have pushed that term on me, it's when they want something. When they want something, it's community. But when it comes to giving back or understanding how basic communities and neighbors and neighborhoods work, they become incredibly selfish. really selfish. And, I have misanthropic tendencies to begin with. I'm really like pushing through and putting a lot of effort into trying to create some type of connection because I have so little in common with my neighbors and my community to begin with. And then when I met with the horrible reality that everything that I fight to project onto people in society is an actuality, it really has left me in a very strange place. I don't want to say traumatized because I think that's a bit dramatic, but it is kind of traumatic because after you experience something that hurts you or confuses you so many times, then if you're intelligent, you start to form you want to make sense of it, and you start to form ideas and behaviors to avoid that pain, to avoid that confusion. And like what I've experienced with the medical community with my Lyme disease and my chronic fatigue, now I'm starting to form a kind of trauma or a real aversion to dealing with my community because they're just becoming such assholes. And I know it's not just me, because all around the country, when you talk to people, even in the Midwest, so many people don't even know their neighbors, let alone talk to their neighbors or socialize with their neighbors. They could never depend on them. And so I'm telling you that I'm coming from this space that I have gone out of my way. And sometimes when I felt it was really appropriate for me to be the one to have had to stretch myself so far to try to make friends with neighbors and connections with neighbors and trust with neighbors. And I just think Americans are fucked up. I think, and I don't know how they're faring in other countries, but whatever was a neighborhood, whatever was a community was before, it definitely isn't now. And you have to understand, my neighbors, some people I understand in certain demographics, when resources are tight, they tend to get suspicious and there's more crime and they turn on each other. I grew up in a demographic like that, so I understand that. But my neighbors have plenty. They're educated people. They work for big corporations. They were brought up well. Meaning they didn't have any sustainable trauma or struggle. And yet it's funny. My one neighbor, who is so kind and has such a high emotional intelligence, she's from Thailand. And she always thinks of me. She's kind, she's generous, and she's honest. I like honest. I gave her this soap, and she didn't like the smell of it, and she thought something was wrong with it, and she told me that she threw it away. And then I explained to her why the things that she saw in the soap actually weren't what she thought it was, and next time just to ask me before she threw it away, because it's really hard to make. And but I respected the fact that she was honest with me. And she tends to be a really kind person. She thinks of others, and she follows through with actions. I like to grow things, and she knows that I'm good at growing things. And last year, she was in town at a Cambodian market, and they were selling these like specialized pepper plants and different vegetables that the little Cambodian grandmothers had grown from seeds. So some really cool, unusual stuff. And she bought a bunch of those plants and brought them to me to grow. And that's what I do for people. That's what I'm always giving my neighbors: canned goods. I'm always giving them like vegetables, chicken eggs. Like I'm always like taking care of them. But this year, sadly, because of my chronic fatigue, I've had to start thinking about where I put my time and energy because I have so little of it. And so I was just really curious when the holiday came around, because I've lived in this particular neighborhood for 4 years now, and I give and give and give. I give away thousands, literally thousands of cans of organic jellies and jams and salsas and vegetables away every year. And jars are expensive if you know anything about canning, and the price is really going up. So all I ask is for people to give me the jars back. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And to let me know if you liked it, did you not like it? Because I'm not going to give you more of it and have you throw it away or go to waste if you didn't like it. And this year, around the holidays, I thought, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to see if one of my neighbors or friends does a preemptive give. If one of them like sends a card, a bottle of wine, a little gift basket, anything. Because like I told you, my neighbors, they're not poor, but they act poor. They act really poor and stingy, a lot of them. And so this year, instead of taking everyone their giant annual harvest basket and giving, I just kind of waited to see. Because to me, that type of thoughtfulness shows that you are thought of and you're appreciated. And guess what? Nothing. Because I didn't give first. And even when I gave first, I mean, it was an obligatory give back, you know. It wasn't a connective give back. Because if these people got it, if they understood like the basics or the value of me and what I give to them, they would like automatically, I shouldn't have to beg to get jars back. I had one person, two persons, actually buy me a case of canning jars. And that shows you that someone really appreciates your effort. They really appreciate your effort because they're actually trying to give you something even a little more. You know what I mean? They're not trying to match you. And it's a thoughtful gift. It's a thoughtful gift. It's showing like, hey, we know these cost money, not including all your time and the resources it takes to grow something. Here's our way of saying thank you and supporting your efforts. But a lot of people they're so selfish. The American individual, you know, I love individuality, but I think that our our sociopathic capitalism, which means when business becomes something that will do anything, including hurt people for profit, that mentality combined with everyone being such an individual and so wrapped up in themselves, that isn't a society. That's a system. And I'm seeing the effects of this selfishness and the hyper individual and this sociopathic capitalism and poor leadership, of course, because in mass, people are dumb and they can do little more than follow. This is why trends happen, and this is why most people, the best they can do, because they never had the chance to individuate, is to follow. There's a security in that because once it's been pre-approved, well, then they're not taking any chances, no chances of making a fool of themselves or being rejected. It's safe, and that's where most people operate from. And that's the most dangerous part about dumbness in mass. And this is how horrific things happen in cultures. And so now we have this leadership that shows absolutely no empathy, no regard, no responsibility. They don't take responsibility. They're just these crass, piggish, sociopathic monsters. And sadly, when something like that is the example and is normalized, you're going to have a majority of people saying, oh, that's what we're supposed to be. That's what we're supposed to do because we follow the leader. And this is going to further degrade the quality of life and American society. And that's just a fact. It's just a fact. And I'm starting to see it in really weird ways. And I have no problem holding people accountable, but I get exhausted with it. I get as exhausted at always having to point out the obvious because, again, my community, they have this very weird passiveness. And because they're so passive, and I'm going to give you an example of this, which, you know, this is going to kind of challenge you. So we have this elderly neighbor, and she was a school teacher. She has a beautiful house, but she's a widow and she lives alone. And she looks really well kept, but she is a unmedicated, aging person with severe bipolarism. And she acts like she's almost schizophrenic. And she wanders the neighborhood menacing people. And she's done this for years. And not only does she menace people, but she has literally smacked people before. And she, even my neighbor who is in the psychiatric field, she came from behind and pushed her down on her face. And no one has done anything about this. They just allow her to menace. Now, you might think that's kind of nice, like they're taking pity on the old woman or this or that. But I look at it as like, you know, it's inevitable that one of these days she is going to encounter the wrong person and she is going to get killed. And so that type of, I call it hyper-liberal, it's like a hyper-liberal, illogic mentality is what a lot of people around here prescribe to. And it just, so when people do shitty things, like a mechanic or some other business or another neighbor, no one says anything and no one does anything and no one ever holds anyone accountable. And so this gives them the idea that they can get away with anything and they're not wrong. This is just one more really frustrating thing for me to have to navigate through in America right now and in my community right now, because there's just, and when you're the voice of logic, people don't like that. People don't like the person who speaks up. And because they're so passive aggressive, when you do, they won't even argue with you. Like, well, I'm difficult to argue with because I don't start a fight usually that I can't finish because I'm not stupid. But they instead, you know, they're like children. They'll just go pout, not talk to you anymore, give you dirty looks because they can't support their argument. They were wrong, maybe they just have to say, I was wrong. I mean, if you can't back up your actions or your argument, then what does that mean? Obviously, you might need to reconsider your position, right? I would. When someone proves to me that I'm wrong, when someone presents logical counter argument, I own up to it. When I make a mistake, I apologize. If I can't show up to your house when I say I'm going to, I will call or text you. So you're not waiting around and I'm not wasting your time. And when people are generous to me, I show them that I really appreciate it, because those are the kind of people I want in my life. And I don't want them to change. I don't want them to feel like the giving tree in a world or in a society that has become so emotionally stupid, so emotionally unintelligent. That's it. I just had to share that with you because, yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. And it's amazing to me how many people will complain about it, people my age, give or take 10 years. And then I'll ask them, well, did you say something to them? Did you call them out on that? Oh, no. And tons of excuses. So if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. If you're raising children this way, you're part of the problem. If you enable people who have selfish, shitty, childlike behavior and they're adults, you're part of the problem, even if you're not actively participating in this shit show yourself. Okay, leave some comments. Can't wait to hear. Bye.